Hi, this is Pete May, co-founder of GreenBiz Group, and I'm excited to be on GreenBiz Studio today with Francis Hyatt, the EVP and Chief Sustainability Officer for Liberty Mutual. Francis, welcome to GreenBiz Studio.
Thanks, Pete. Glad to be here. Really appreciate it.
Great. So as a lead-in, wanted to find out a little bit about you. You've kind of segued into a Chief Sustainability Officer role after being in the insurance business for a little bit. Talk a little bit about that evolution and what led you into this role and what exactly your role is now.
Yeah, sure thing. So I've been with the company 30 years. I've been in both the business and in the talent space. About 4 years ago, Pete, our CEO really decided that ESG needed to become one of the top objectives for the organization. And so as he started to roll out the work and looking at the environmental issues, social and governance, it became clear that we weren't moving fast enough. And so I was candidly away on vacation one day, and Dave calls me and starts talking to me about the work that we've been doing in ESG. And we got into the substantive discussion around that it's such a critical issue for not only the business world, but for the world at large. And that he wanted heightened focus. And within a few minutes, we talked about whether I'd be the right person for the job and whether I'd be willing to build out the sustainability office for the organization. And here I sit, really business focused, super important for our organization. And so welcome, Francis, to the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Yes, indeed, and plenty to work on. I'm curious, you recently penned if we still use that term, a article on the case for investing in resiliency. And for some people that may be obvious for the insurance business, but from your industry perspective, summarize a little bit about what you covered and how you frame the case for investing in resiliency.
As an insurer, we've been dealing with the issues of climate change for a very, very long time, and it's central to our business, right? So folks want protection for the unexpected. Climate is one of the things that impacts the unexpected. But, we kind of view climate resiliency as a both and, right? So it's both, fighting the issues associated with getting to a world that's aligned with the Paris Accord, and it's ensuring that we build up resiliency in the world in order to support our customers, our policyholders, and candidly, the world at large, right? More resiliency in the world means better adaptation towards climate-related events. The company is very, very committed to making that transition to a low-carbon economy, but we're also committed to ensuring that from an investing perspective and from a products and services perspective that we're building up renewables, that we're creating opportunities for our policyholders to build more resiliency. For example, if you're thinking about commercial construction or if you're thinking about residential construction, resiliency is critical in this space. So for us, it's just really, really important. We recognize there's work to be done both from a regulatory perspective, influencing the way building codes are created. There's work to be done in terms of influencing how carbon emissions are calculated. So, for example, for us, the Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials is an important part of being able to do that math for large insurers. Getting involved with organizations like IBHS and influencing building codes, that's a big deal, right? Making sure that the world at large is going to have better opportunity to be more resilient. And then lastly, I guess what I would say is that resiliency isn't just about buildings. Resiliency is really about resources and ecosystems as well. So, as we are getting involved in this work, we want to understand what we need to do to support the shift in global financing, if you will, flowing towards more nature-positive outcomes.
I saw that you were a player on the task force for nature-related financial disclosures as well.
We are a proud participant in TNFD, and we see it really important. We also, on the investing side, Pete, and I'll just mention because I think it's important as well, we're committed and have signed on to the Principles for Responsible Insuring. And it may sound a little pedantic to some folks, but it's really important because when you've got large assets under management, getting the organization aligned behind a common vision of what are we doing with those assets? How are those assets aligned from a responsible investing perspective? How does our view of what we invest in from a renewable perspective? How are we helping the world decarbonize? These are all really important rocks for us to move. And so PRI was just one example of how we jumped in both feet, and we're happy to do it.
Yeah, and my last question, as we do this interview now, there are negotiators in Glasgow at COP. There are a lot of students in the street. It seems like rising ambitions on how we deal with the global imperative around climate change and how we define the greater ambitions is really the discussion point. So I'd like to leave it with a question for you. What role does the insurance industry take in increasing expectations and doing its part for climate resilience?
So we do believe that we have an important role to play for our customers, for our employees, and make sure that we're implementing climate resiliency for the folks that we service. Some of the answer to that question, Pete, is around products and services. So as the world shifts to either more resilient forms of building, or as the world shifts to more renewable forms of energy that will build resilience for all of us, we want to make sure we have products and services and risk consulting services that are available to help people along that journey. And it is a journey, right? Because where we are today isn't going to be where we are in 10 years, yet folks need insurance, and insurance needs to be with them every step of that process. But it's more than that, because we also believe that we need to take an active role in encouraging private-public conversations around these shared priorities, whether it's around climate or resiliency. So, for example, we've partnered with NOAA, and we've brought folks together to talk about resiliency when it comes to risk and risk policy and what that landscape looks like. We've also co-hosted events with Reuters and really want to focus on how we are building resiliency. So, for example, with the Build Strong Coalition, which has been really instrumental in trying to influence FEMA's Building Resilient Communities program and really supporting that grant. I'd also say that we're pretty happy about President Biden's announcement that he's putting $1 billion in funding for BRIC programs. And we think that, pulling these things together are going to be really important in terms of sort of building future resilient community.
Francis Hyatt from Liberty Mutual, thanks for joining us on GreenBiz Studio today.
Thanks so much, Pete. Really great to be with you.